Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Suranjali Seal, and like I always say, if you are somebody that loves literature and is all about literature, then this is the channel for you. In our video today, we're going to discuss the 6 elements of tragedy that Aristotle talks about in his work Poetics. Now, we've already begun our discussion with Poetics. I've covered 2 videos already on Poetics. The first deals with his theory of imitation or mimesis. We've talked about the object, manner, and medium of imitation. The second video I've talked about tragedy in it, and I've covered the various aspects of tragedy, various things that he actually talks about as far as tragedy is concerned. Before he talks about the 6 elements of tragedy, there's a lot of input, a lot of ideas that he puts into this topic. So we've discussed all of that in detail. Now, what we have done so far is I have included textual references. I've also included quotes, and I read out from the text it also as far as imitation and tragedy is concerned, and I've given a part by part, chapter by chapter detailed analysis of the text itself. So if you haven't watched the other 2 videos out, then make sure that you watch that so that it's easier for you to understand this one. Here we're going to continue from it. We've already completed tragedy and imitation. Now we're going to look at the 6 elements of tragedy that he talks about in the text, and with this we'll be done with our discussion on tragedy as far as Aristotle is concerned and as far as literary criticism is concerned. After this, maybe we'll just dedicate one video to Aristotle versus Plato, where we'll look at the theory of mimesis or theory of imitation and see how the student and teacher differed from each other in their ideas. So without any further ado, let's get right into it. We're going to discuss the 6 elements of tragedy, and with that we'll be done with our discussion on the Poetics. So what have we done in the previous video? Since it's a continuation, I thought that it would be nice to just give you pointers. So we have discussed Aristotle's definition of tragedy in detail. We've even analyzed word by word, right? So we've done that. We've done what makes a good tragedy. So we've already mentioned the 6 elements of a tragedy. What makes a good tragedy? The 6 elements that we are going to talk about now makes up a good tragedy. Of these 6 elements, remember I told you that the first element is plot. And plot is the one that Aristotle gives the utmost primacy to, the utmost importance. So for Aristotle, plot is the most important element of a tragedy. So we've discussed that. So we've discussed plot in detail. We've discussed action versus character. What does Aristotle say? Already from the text, I've included the quote itself, the paragraph itself. We've analyzed that what is more important for Aristotle? Is it character or is it action? We've discussed that. Then we've looked at this, the primacy of plot. What should a plot look like? If you refer to that image, that's what a plot should look like according to Aristotle. There should be an exposition, a rising action, complication. There should be a middle or a climax, reversal, falling action, and denouement, and then catharsis. We've discussed all of this in detail. And now before we discuss this, remember I gave you the example of Cruella. We've discussed this movie. I've given you the entire structure of a plot, the structure of a tragedy. According to Aristotle, I explained to you via an example. And the example that I gave is of the 2021 movie Cruella, and via that we've discussed the entire structure of a plot, and we've discussed everything in detail. We've discussed the structure of a plot, the peripeteia. We've discussed anagnorisis, simple plot, complex plot. We've discussed all of that. Then what actually is the meaning of a climax, characteristic of a climax. We've done all of that. Then we talked about catharsis. We've covered a detailed analysis of what the word means. I've taken words and lines and sentences from his definition itself, pinpointed, picked out the words and explained line by line, word by word to you. What is his definition of tragedy, and what does the purgation of emotions, arousing of fear and pity, and then purgation of these emotions, that is catharsis. What does this word actually mean? I've given many examples to actually even clear out the meaning of this word to you. And then I've also referred to its meaning in medicine, in psychology, in dramaturgy. What does the word catharsis actually mean? We've discussed that in detail. Then we've moved on to the unities, the unity of time, action, and place. We've discussed that. We've discussed the 3 main parts of a plot, that is astonishment, anagnorisis, and peripeteia. These 3 together result in catharsis. We've discussed all of this in detail. So again, there are 6 elements in a tragedy according to Aristotle. He gives a definition of a tragedy, then tells us that there are 6 elements in a tragedy. Of these 6 elements, he gives utmost importance to the plot. We've discussed the plot in detail. He says the plot is the soul of tragedy. So we've discussed that in the previous video. Now we're going to move on further from that. We're going to look at the other elements and then give a roundabout conclusion, and we'll be done with this topic as well. It's going to be a very, very short video and a crisp one at that. So let's get right into it. Okay, so let's start from where we left off. Every tragedy, the 6 elements of tragedy, according to Aristotle, he says every tragedy, therefore, must have 6 parts, which parts determine its quality. And these are the 6 parts. Plot, which we have already discussed, character, diction, thought, spectacle, and song. So these are the 6 parts of a tragedy that makes it a good tragedy. So you can judge whether a tragedy is good or not by seeing these 6 parts, by seeing if all of them are what they are supposed to be. So these 6 determine a tragedy's quality. Okay, so let's look at the next character after plot, or the next element after plot, which is character. Okay, so as far as character is concerned, what does Aristotle say? He says that a character must be good. A character will be good if his or her purpose is good. So I will not give you a very far-fetched example. I'll give you a very easy one to understand this. A character, how will you judge if a character is good? If the character is doing good things, if the purpose of the character, the way he guides himself to take decisions, if that is good. That's how you'll say that the character is good. Okay. Let's just take the example of Karna from Mahabharata. Our epic, the Mahabharata. What is his character like? No matter the fact that he sides with the wrong people, he is in the wrong side of the story. He picks the bad people to side with. I'm giving this very easily just so that you understand. So he sides with the Kauravas, but still we sympathize with him. I mean, if you consider it a tragedy, the downfall of Karna, if you consider it a tragedy, you look at this. A tragedy is supposed to give you a character, or is supposed to be the character should be of a higher type. They should come from, you'll see this later, that they must have a high status in society. So he comes from a wealthy background, but then we see his downfall, right? That he was supposed to be the first Pandava Putra, the eldest. But then he sides with fate would have it that that was not his destiny. He went to the wrong side. We still sympathize with him. Why? We sympathize with him because he chose to be a good friend. Like there were chances given to him enough that, that he should back out of the war because he would lose and because he's with the wrong side. But why do we sympathize with him? Because, he came from a high status. He did not get what he deserved. Secondly, we knew that he was supporting the wrong side because he was a good friend. He was an honest and loyal friend to the counterpart. So it's because Duryodhan supported him in his time of need. So when in Duryodhan's time of need, he does not back out. He does not back out. That shows his loyalty. So you see, no matter the fact that he's in the wrong side, many people, I'm telling you, they do sympathize. There is this sympathy that we all have for Karna because of this. Because if his character is good, his purpose should be good. What was his purpose? His purpose was that he would actually side with his friend who stood by him. That's why we have a sympathy for Karna. Now this is I'm just giving an example, but in a tragedy also, you consider Hamlet, consider Othello, the character must be good because their purpose should be good in life. And I told you in the previous video also, he says, when we talked about character versus action, he says that action is more important than a character, because a character is just like, okay, he's good or he's bad, but it's action that decides whether you're happy or you're sad. So you might be a very happy person. I'm repeating again, you might be a very good person, but if you make blunder mistakes, the outcome will be a mistake. The outcome will be a blunder only. If you take good decisions in life, calculated decisions in life, outcome will be like that. So a character also must be good, no doubt, but the character will be good if his purpose is good. If his purpose is good, he'll take those kind of decisions in his life. If the character is just good without any purpose, he might make mistakes. But if the character's purpose is good, no matter what action you take, you'll sympathize with the character. You'll know that the character is good by his purpose. What is his purpose in life? How does his brain work? What kind of decisions? If he has a purpose, he'll take decisions towards that purpose. You take Hamlet, you take Othello, you take any of the tragedies, all these protagonists have a purpose and they work towards that purpose. Even if it's their downfall, they work towards that purpose. So a character must be good. Character will be good if the purpose is good, must have a high status in society. True to life, that is, I've repeated it again and again, that we should be able to relate to these people. If we can relate to these people, he says that when we discussed imitation, he says, what should tragedy represent? He said that tragedy should represent men in real life, and men doing something. Okay, men doing something, to do. The word action means to do. So in Latin, the word action means to do. So a tragedy is an imitation or an action of an action of a serious type, he says, and it depicts men of higher or men who are higher than they are, men who are better than they are in real life. So true to life, even if they're better than they are than us in real life, even if we see characters that are better than us in real life, if we see these characters who are of a higher status, who are better than us as being depicted on stage, they should still have that element of relatability. They should be true to life so that we actually feel for them when their downfall comes. So if you have people who we don't relate to, we don't see around us, if we have superficial characters, we will not actually feel for them. There won't be any catharsis, there won't be any fear or pity. But we have to be able to relate to these characters. They should be true to life so that we truly feel for them. And then the character should be consistent in his actions. That is, it's not that you're like, for example, just consider Karna again, okay? For Karna also, if he would have left Duryodhan at the end of the day, I'm just giving a very simple example, okay? This is just for explanation. So he sided with the wrong side. Duryodhan helped him when he was in need. So he decided to side with him no matter what. He was a good friend throughout. Imagine towards the end when the Kurukshetra war came and he would just decide that, okay, I'll switch side with the Pandavas. Would that be a consistent character in him then? That means he was never a good friend. He saved himself and let Duryodhan go at the end of the day. He actually backstabbed Duryodhan in his time of need and sided with the Pandavas because he knew that they would win. Now, just consider if Karna would have switched sides, then what? What do we get to know about his character? Was he a true friend or not? So what I'm trying to say is, this character that we're talking about in a tragedy should be consistent in his actions. That is, if he has been good, if he has been honest. For example, Othello also, okay? Or you take Hamlet also. I mean, you take any tragic hero. They will always have something or the other that is consistent. Even the tragic flaw also in them is consistent throughout, to be or not to be, throughout the play. Okay, indecisive. It's like that. So even this character that we're talking about in a tragedy should be consistent in his actions. Not that in one part he's something and in another part he completely turns around, okay, and becomes something else. So he has to be consistent. Should be good, not perfect. So what do we mean by this? That he should be good, not perfect. So you've heard of this word tragic flaw. I'll tell you something. We human beings, we seldom learn from our mistakes. We sometimes do. And we don't learn from history also, okay? Frankly speaking, we are human beings, and one characteristic that makes us human is that we're not perfect. We are not perfect by a long shot, and we are prone to making mistakes again and again. And that's what makes us human. These imperfections make us human. So in here, what Aristotle says is that the character should be good, no doubt, should be consistent, no doubt, should be of a high status, but he should not be perfect. Okay, he should not be perfect. There must be some flaw in him, something that will actually bring about his downfall. This character, okay, it has to be a place or something about him or something around him that will actually affect his decision making, and it is going to lead to his downfall. So he stresses on imperfection. He stresses that you have to be good, but you don't have to be perfect. If you're perfect, then you will not make mistakes. It will not be a tragedy if you're perfect. That means you're going to be perfect in all respects. But he says that you have to be good but not perfect. This is where tragic flaw and hamasha come into the picture. So what he says about hamasha, let's just look at that. Hamasha is from the Greek word which means to error. Okay, to error. It is closely related to and often interchangeably, and listen to this very carefully, it is often interchangeably used with the term tragic flaw. However, hamasha can also be seen as a mistake based on outside circumstances rather than a character's personal frailty. I told you detailed analysis, so let's just look at this a little bit. Okay. It is interchangeably used with tragic flaw. So we confuse, what I mean here, we sometimes confuse tragic flaw and hamasha to be the exact same thing. Although they can be used interchangeably, although there's a close link between the two, there's a small tiny difference between the two, and we need to be clear about that. Then only we'll understand the concept. Hamasha can also be seen as a mistake based on outside circumstances. That is, I can take a decision, I might be taking a decision based on outside circumstances, and it might be a wrong decision because of outside circumstances. That is, it is not a tragic flaw. I can take right decisions. This flaw is not inherently embedded in me. It's the circumstances that made me take this decision. This is hamasha. Tragic flaw is a character's personal frailty. Tragic flaw is embedded in you. It's a frailty. It's a weakness that this tragic hero has. That is a tragic flaw. Now let's look at the connection. Okay, this has to be clear so that we understand the topic better. Both of them together are a character's frailty. If I look at a situation and based on that situation, even if my gut feeling is wrong, I look at the situation and I take a decision. That is also my frailty. That is a mistake. Tragic flaw, I keep making mistakes based on that same character trait. So sometimes I'm just saying this, hamasha and tragic flaw, both are a character's frailty. Both of them are a weakness in the character. But hamasha also has this element of outside circumstances. It can also be because of an error of judgment. So hamasha can be because of error of judgment. Tragic flaw is inherent. You will keep making mistakes because that's a weakness that you have. So again, I'll just explain it again. Hamasha and tragic flaw are interchangeably used, and it's not wrong also. They're very closely connected with each other because both of them display a character's weakness, a character's frailty, a character's imperfection. But hamasha is a little different because it is not a character's, it is a character's frailty, but sometimes it can arise due to error of judgment because of outside situations and circumstances. So this is done. So this is what we have covered regarding the character. That a tragic hero we call him, right, because of this tragic flaw. So we have the character or a tragic hero must be good. Character must be good if the purpose is good. Character will be good if the purpose is good. Must have a high status in society, should be true to life, should be consistent in his actions, should be good, not perfect. Then he says this person should have a tragic flaw or hamasha, which also means that this hamasha and tragic flaw is often interchangeably used, but hamasha actually means to error, or it's an error of judgment, while tragic flaw is inherent. It's an inherent flaw in the tragic hero's character. So this is what we've covered about character. Now we're going to move on further. Okay, so guys, this part is the most comparatively easier actually. We're going to just finish it really easily and we'll be done with this video, and we'll be done with the 6 elements of tragedy as well. So let's look through it. Okay, one thing that I forgot to tell you is plot is also called mythos or mythos, we have character, ethos. Now we have thought, which is dianoia. I've already given it in the slides, dianoia. Diction is known as lexis. Music is known as a melopeia, and spectacle is known as opsis. So this is all according to Aristotle. So let's just look at what these last elements mean. So thought or dianoia, okay, thought, spoken usually, reasoning of human characters, can explain the characters or story background. He is not giving a general definition or dictionary definition of thought. He's actually talking about all this in relation to tragedy. So when you're looking at tragedy being shown on stage, he says it's thought which is spoken usually, the spoken reasoning of human characters that can explain the characters or story background. So basically it's everything that the characters say throughout the play. Whatever, this is their thought, whatever is in their brain, spoken reasoning, that is, they're speaking it out. Why you're not just speaking random words, it must have come to your thought first. So the thought is your spoken reasoning of human beings, so the human characters on stage that we see, and this can explain whatever they say, can explain the characters. We can get to know about the characters through what they say, or the story background. So that's natural. I mean, on stage when we're seeing anything being acted, whatever the characters say, apart from what they do, apart from the action, what they say also give us a lot of information, right? So this is what he's saying. In dictionary meaning, thought is the capacity for process of or result of discursive thinking. It's an opinion sense. So I'm saying it again. If you say that this person is funny, how? By a joke that maybe he cracks on the stage. This person is bad. Maybe because the audience can see this person planning and plotting behind the protagonist's back. Okay, you never know. So it's the spoken reasoning, the reasoning that one person has that tells us a lot about the character, makes him choose one way or the other. Throughout the action of the play, characters are behaving a certain way, choosing a certain way, right? That is all thought. Therefore, it is present in everything. Thought is present in everything. If you get any question where this is mentioned, what is that one element in a tragedy which is present in everything? So it is the thought. Thought or dianoia is present in everything. I'm repeating it again. It is through the actions, the spoken reasoning, everything, decision making that we come to know what and who a character is. So it is present in everything in a tragedy. Now, next we come to diction or lexis. So it is, Aristotle meant the language through which the story is presented. So the language through which the story is presented, that's the diction. Information can be presented verbally. So you can give verbally, I mean spoken, that is whatever they're saying, whether that's through speech or song. You had a chorus also, if you remember, in Greek tragedy, you have a chorus that used to sing, they used to present songs in the middle of the tragedy, and sometimes you can even narrate a story through a song, right? So that's what he's saying. Or non-verbally, facial expressions, a written note in a movie. So when you watch, and forget Aristotle's time, in today's time also, sometimes you just see that the shock is expressed on the face. You just don't say anything. You know, I've given this example of Cruella in the movie Cruella in my previous video when we discussed tragedy. And I told you, look at her face right there. She's in utter shock. When I was explaining the climax part, I said that she's in utter shock. That is the climax. That is the turning point. That is the plot twist. That utter shock in her face when she did not say anything. That is also diction, part of the diction. The facial expressions, the language through which anything is communicated. Anything through which the story is presented, Again, just remember, thought is present everywhere. When thought is present everywhere, in the sense, the difference between thought and diction, I'll tell you. Thought is present everywhere. That is, whatever you're thinking, you're saying, you're doing, it's your reasoning. Diction is the way the story is presented. It is the way it is arranged. It is the way it is taking place. So you might be shocked and you just sit there with a blank face. Your thought is telling you that you're in shock. And you're like, I'm shocked. Does that even make sense? You don't even have one expression on your face of shock. Now, if you express it and you say, oh my God, I'm in shock, that has a different impact on the audience. That is diction, the way it is presented. That's the way in presented. What you're thinking, what you're saying, the whole story, whether it's facial expression, song, whatever, the way it is presented, that is diction. Then you have music or melopia. Now you know that in Greek, there is a well-known fact that in Greek tragedy during Aristotle's time, there were choruses that actually performed in between, or even as part of the play. Also, they used to sing. So this is melody, the art or theory of inventing melody. That is music. Music was used to beautify drama and intensify its impact. So the chorus was employed at that time. We all know that. Then we have spectacle or opsis. Now, spectacle includes all aspects of the tragedy. Opsis, that is that contribute with sensory effects. Okay, that is your costumes, scenery, the gestures of the actors, the sound of the music, the resonance of the actors' voices. So all of this is spectacle. Spectacle, you can understand, it's a big thing. So it's like whatever actually grasps your senses. Aristotle argues that spectacle is the least important component of a tragedy. What is the most important? Plot. What is the most important for Aristotle? It's the plot. Least important is tragedy. Again, if any question comes, you can answer it this way, that the least important is spectacle or opsis. So with this, we're done actually with the 6 elements of tragedy. Pretty easy. We've actually covered the major parts in all these 3 videos that we've dedicated to poetics. And after this, I'll make one other video on this theory of forms, theory of imitation, Plato's theory of imitation and Aristotle's theory of mimesis. We're just going to look at the difference between the two so that we understand where the student and teacher differed from each other, or differed as far as imitation is concerned, poetry is concerned. We're going to look at that in the next video. So that is it for today, guys. This has been a very short video, but a very fruitful one. I hope this video has been helpful for you. And if it has, and I really sincerely hope that it has, with that hope in mind, I'm sincerely wishing that you make sure that you watch the other 2 videos also on tragedy and imitation and an introduction to Aristotle, because it will better your understanding on the topic. So that is it for today, guys. I hope that you stay healthy and happy. If this video has been helpful for you, then please don't forget to like the video, share the video, and subscribe to my channel for similar content. If you're all about literature and if you're all things literature, if you love literature, then this is the place to be. See you in the next one, guys.